Hi, Keah. Hi.
Hi.
My favorite, season 3, episode 26, Keah Brown, the pretty one. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm so happy to be back. I had so much fun doing that
Yeah.
episode with you.
We instantly clicked.
I mean, immediately,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I love her.
And vice versa. Well, actually, when I read your book, The Pretty One, which everyone can see, I've post-it noted to death here.
I love it, by the way.
It's one of those weird things where I felt like I knew you before I met you in
Hmm.
person. So meeting you was, to know you is just to love you. And, and so when I met you, it was just on. It was so easy. I'm so happy to see you.
I
I haven't
know.
seen you in a
It's
long
been
time.
forever. I'm like, literally, the minute that it's safe for me to do another LA trip, I'm
You're
gonna be like,
coming.
I'm coming. I'm like, hey, you, Scott, let's go
Yes.
to dinner. Let's do
So can you tell me, I'm reading from your chapter, Freedom of a Ponytail,
something.
which is one of very difficult to pick a chapter out of here or an essay rather, because it's a collection of essays. It's very difficult to pick an essay because they're all so good.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
but I really felt like that one had so much of my own experience in it with my own hair,
Hmm.
of nobody knowing how to do it, not knowing how to do it myself, dreading it, getting it wet. Because, if I was with some family of the dominant culture, they would not know how to put my hair back in a
Yeah.
ponytail. There was just no way. So I
Uh-huh.
felt like it dealt with that intersectionality of race, specifically people who are descendants of Africans,
Hmm.
and disability. So I just wanted, can you talk about it for a minute? Just tell us about the chapter and why you wrote it. I mean, the
Yeah,
essay.
I think that, I mean, it is a chapter and an essay, so you're good either
Thank
way.
you.
But yeah, I mean, I think that the most powerful thing about that essay to me is the fact that when we think about something like a ponytail, we don't think about it in terms of like, oh, everybody can do it. It's no big deal. That's just do. I'm just gonna quickly put up my hair and go on about my day. But for me and for a lot of people, it's not that easy. And to write about it for me was a really good way to show people sort of the complexities of disability, but also again the complexities of our hair and how we navigate a world that is not so clear on how to take care of it, and so it makes us not so clear on how to take care of it, and so there's that extra added layer where it's like, I want to be able to do this simple thing, but I didn't know how to for so long. And I think because we have such a strong relationship with our hair as Black women, that when I wrote the essay talking about, hey, I did this huge thing, I learned how to put my hair in a ponytail, it seemed like a small thing, but it was also something that everyone can relate to. At one point in our life, whether you're Black, disabled, or what have you, we've put our hair up in some way. It doesn't matter like the length of it, unless you've been, bald your entire life. You at least understand what a ponytail is. You know what I mean? And so
Mhm.
it was a really good way to teach people like, oh, my life is different than yours in this way. And even though we're different, I'm sort of in also many ways just like you. And I'm still trying to navigate a world that isn't designed for me and figure out what it means to be a person who wants to feel good and look good, and here's a way that I go about it.
Yeah. I mean, and it just, that's what comes out. It's just
Mhm.
struck me as a chapter that I'd like to give to people to read who have, because I think people don't realize, me included, because I'm privileged in so many ways, these things that seem to take no effort that I take for granted,
Mhm.
um, how these things could be thought of differently and looked at differently and are
Yeah.
looked at differently from people who don't have that privilege. And I can't think of a specific example now, but well, I can. I got pregnant really easily,
Mhm.
and I had 2 easy pregnancies and 2 easy births. I rarely thought about it until I started hearing about people who had challenges in those areas. And so then it made me very grateful, right? And much more aware of my privilege in that way. And I think this chapter, this essay does that for people who can just throw their hair back in a ponytail.
Mhm.
It does take two hands, right?
It does. It does. And I think that people people are like, oh, I would have never thought about it. You know, the response to that essay is like, oh, I would have never once thought about like how it could be hard for people or how you have to find workarounds to things. And I think it just goes to show that when we broaden our horizons and our circle and we meet people who don't live our same experiences, our worldview is better, but also we become better as people because we can understand like, oh, this thing should be designed for more people. Like this should be
Yes.
designed with more people in mind. So maybe we
Yes.
should expand what we think we know and what we can do when
Mm-hmm.
we're, you know, coming up with new concepts about putting our hair up in a ponytail or coming up with new building like styles and ways in which we can make things more accessible and more
Mm-hmm.
um, viable for more than just your normal non-disabled person. I think that for me, it's like talking to people specifically about this essay. It's just the idea of like, oh, you know, this is something I understand, and now I have to go do the work of like remembering that it's a completely different thing than what I once thought it was. And I think that it's
Right.
really fun to be able to talk about something that like is on its, you know, on its surface very simple and
Mm-hmm.
easy and fun, and then also have it be this deeper thing where like, oh, this person didn't know how to do this thing that I've always known how to do. And also it's really cool to see that sort of triumph, you know, to see
Yes.
that I was able to actually do it. By the time you reach the end of the essay, you're like, oh, good for her. Like good, she did this thing that was like something she always wanted. And I love the idea, as you know, of like happy endings, of just having something to, you know, strive toward, and having something that I can look forward to. And I think that for a lot of people, this essay sort of resonates in terms of them also having something to look forward to and also being able to appreciate the small things that they accomplish.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's
Mhm.
so well said. My last question, because I want to be mindful of your time, but at the end of where I stopped reading,
Mhm.
I ended where you are cautioning people to ask if you need help before
Yeah.
helping. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think that oftentimes people with the best intentions or even the worst ones tend to feel like, oh, I'm just going to do this random thing for this stranger. And they're going to be grateful. And it's like sometimes I don't need help. It just takes me a little longer to do something. And
Right.
so when you insist that I need help before me even asking you, you're sort of taking away my autonomy and my right to being a fully realized person and just saying, like, oh, there's this thing that I need to get out of the way, and there's this thing I need to do to help this person, but I'm not really a person in that sense.
Mm,
So I feel like people should really be cautious about how they do those, how they decide that they want to help somebody. Like ask first, because at the end of the day, disabled people are people, and we sometimes need help, sometimes we don't. But you should make sure that you err on the side of caution in terms of like just asking us first, so that you don't feel like you're infantilizing us or making it seem like we're just something in your path or with
mhm.
your good deed for the day. Just ask people first, you know, because I feel like I'm finally getting to a place where I'm more comfortable asking for help, but I hate it so much when people just assume that I need it without any sort of conversation whatsoever.
Right. Well, there's a little bit of arrogance to assume
Mm-hmm.
that you need help. And there's also, like, I remember when my 3-year-old wasn't able to, or maybe 4-year-old wasn't able to tie his shoes at all. And I would just like rush and tie them for him because I was uncomfortable. That
Mm-hmm.
he probably could have done it if I had given him a little bit longer in the morning. But I was just like, come on. I didn't want to see him struggle. I also was in a hurry. I was super impatient. It actually took my mom to see that and
Yeah,
say, hey, let him do it. Give yourself a little bit more time in the morning,
right, right.
because
It's
he needs that
patience.
time. Hmm.
Yeah, it's really about patience and realizing that like just because someone does something differently than you do or it takes them a little longer
Yeah,
doesn't inherently mean that they need you to rush them
exactly.
through it. Yeah.
Exactly. You are such a delight and a light, and I love this essay so much.
Thank you.
I'm going to also, people are going to see me reading it. So there'll be another video that goes along with this one where I'm reading the essay
Oh,
out
I can't
loud
wait for
from your book,
that.
pretty one. And I hope they enjoyed as much as I do. I hope I do your words justice.
I'm sure you will.
Thank you, Keah. Back in high school, I wanted to be her. I wanted a body with completely functioning hands and feet, a body without a right leg that was shorter than the left. I wanted to wake up glad that I had woken up. I gave validity to every stereotypical idea that I, a disabled woman, hated about my body, that I would hate it because there was no other choice. Whenever the idea of disability was brought up in social circles or on TV, it was done in jest or disgust. I was always the exception, and I reveled in it. I didn't want to resent God for giving me crooked lips and fingers, aching knees and hips, but I did. Even though Leah or my mom would help me every morning without complaint, having to wait until they were done getting ready and then asking them to fix my hair really bothered me. At 14, 16, 17, and 18, I still had to depend on someone else to do something that everyone else around me could do alone.